I got hit in the ribs with a AK-47, and it cracked my ribs. And it cracked my right side of my ribs, and that put me down on the ground. Then they put the boots to me and just started kicking and harding. The Man, it was a mess. I never thought it was going to be over. You crawl up in a little ball, to protect your vitals. And somebody had gotten a boot in, a steel toed boot, I think,
Hmm.
and just hit me right on my sacrum and coccyx bone and cracked that. And that's when, I could feel my legs go numb. And I just thought, no, I'm losing it. I can't fight back. And I passed out.
And welcome back to another episode of True Stories from a Real Private Eye. I'm your host, Vinnie Coppola. With me, as always, is Lynn Lambdin, a real private investigator right here in Atlanta, Georgia. We have a special show for you. An old friend of the show, Ken Kraus, is back, a Marine Sergeant who wrote a book, A Marine Endures Hell, about the time he spent in Evin prison, the first hostage taken during the Iranian Revolution of 1979. So this is a very special show. And with all that's going on in the news, we have a lot of questions for him. Take it away, Lynn.
Well, in 1970, February of 1970, Valentine's Day of 1979, this is where it all started. This is where the Iran hostage crisis started. And Ken Kraus was there. He was man on point. So with that being said, I would like to start by asking Ken, how did you end up there, Ken? How did you end up as a guard at the embassy in Iran?
Hey, Vinny and Lynn, how are you? Thank you very much for having me on. This is great.
Ken, it's our honor to have you here, buddy.
100%. 100%.
This is great, especially with the time that's going on right now over there. Yeah. I can almost smell the freedom coming for them people. It's amazing.
Yeah.
That's great. Oh, to answer your question there, Lynn, I was sent temporary duty from the embassy that I was stationed at Nicosia, Cyprus. And as the Americans over there, as they were going through right now, just reverse image of it is that as the State Department has put out bolos and for information, 202, help us get out of here. That's really what happened is that you had a lot of Americans, like 10 times as many that you have now, trying to get out of that country when the Shah fell 47 years ago. And it put a big strain on the embassy security staff, along with what our normal already duties were. So they pulled from the other, what we call fat embassies, Rome, Madrid, Paris, things like that, Nicosia, that didn't have such a viable threat going on. And I was supposed to just be there for a short 90-day period. You see how that worked out.
Well,
now when you say I'm sorry, Lynn, when you say the Shah got overthrown, was he really overthrown, or did he just leave, or what happened with that?
That would be a perspective from the people that were there, and Khomeini came in. I mean, you're looking at, if you were to go in right now and compare what's happening with the mullahs, the theocracy that's going on right there, would you say, and it's a rhetorical question, would you say they're about to get overthrown? I would. Okay. Yes. So whether you have to end up killing all of them like the disease that they are, or whether they just quit, capitulate, and flee, your call. But it's basically the same thing with the Shahs that he was dying of lymphomic cancer. He was terminal. And at that point in 79, it come to January, I think it was January 16th, I remember him flying out of the country. I mean, it wasn't like he snuck out of the country. They knew he was leaving. His position was untenable. So to answer your question there, technically, overthrow, yeah. If it was just out to him for him to leave and be sick, and he already had his second person coming in behind him, his replacement, then he wouldn't have been overthrown. But because that he was a hated person with Ayatollah Khomeini had been just on his heels for the last 10 years, I would say, to answer your question, yeah, he's basically overthrown.
Yeah.
Well, Ken, I read your book and done some research on the whole thing. I've known you a long time. You and I've been friends for 25 years. So, although I didn't know that you were part of the Iran ordeal until after I'd known you for 15 years, but that's neither here nor there. So the day on February 14th, when all this started heating up, did you have any idea that this was getting ready to heat up before it started?
Oh yeah, we've been seeing all kinds of demonstrations, just like what you're seeing on television and on the social media. Now remember, we did not have the internet. It was 1979, 78, 79. I was there. Okay, and you didn't have the internet. You didn't have the cell phone. So whatever was coming out on your three or four broadcasts of the news, ABC, CBS, things like that. And usually you didn't get to the same night. And since an 8-hour difference between East Coast time, Atlanta, Washington D.C., and it's 8 hours to Tehran in Iran. So sometimes it'd be a day or two before you would see what was going on, and then it all depends on who was reporting it. Was it Reuters at the time, UPI, AP, Associated Press, British BBC? So when it comes to it, you really didn't know at the time what came. And by the time you got one story out in one version, it changed or morphed into something else. So it was a very fluid, dynamic situation, as almost all internal revolutions are.
So take us to that day on February 14th. So did you work day, nights when your shift started, ended? How did this ordeal start?
Because it was so fluid and dynamic, and we were taking small arms fire, drive-bys, and similar to what they have today. There was no real, I'd say, violence in the point where you have it outside. Where right now we have outside bombings in a war zone. This was not from anything from the outside the country of Iran. Everything was internal. Those that were going to finally support the Shah and those that were going to try to overthrow him. For the most part, it was a bloody civil war, brother against brother, is basically what you have is over there. So when we've been watching this go on, we knew that sooner or later that whoever came in here, we were hoping, we as the I'd say my level at the Marine Guards, we would level that they would be able to calm these people down because there had been, you've seen some of the pictures and stuff that's in my book, the catastrophic type of murder that was just going on up and down the streets. There was it was payback to the Shah's secret police, the Savak, and basically just whoever had a gun, use it any way where they wanted to. There was no 911, no law whatsoever. So it was complete chaos. It's all the best way I can describe it. Bloody ass chaos. So
when you oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
so the coming up on after the Shah left, it kind of changed after about January 16th to about February 10th. Those 3 weeks that were in there, it was very very untenable because Khomeini was just coming back in, and when he finally came back in, I think the first week of February, it really went crazy, and we knew for a fact that I guess the intel people had told us that um, through their intelligence and their reports and whatever, that the embassy could be hit and could be attacked, and we could now went from a generic threat to a specific threat. So they amped up the hours, and we were put on 12-hour shifts, 12 on, 12 off, and a lot of our regular duties and things were cut back, and we had gotten down to a skeleton crew. We had gotten There was probably less than 100 people in the entire embassy when there's usually 500 coming and going there.
So my question to you is twofold. If the new attack was imminent, why did they take your M16s and replace them with shotguns, and why did they cut it to a skeleton crew?
Well, for one, it's a normal policy in a skeleton crew is that you're just going to have just a bare minimum to keep the embassy running and open, so that just because of that reason, you got less chance of anybody being taken hostage or being hurt, or getting lost. Okay, you're going to have just enough to keep that embassy going, and for the most part, you don't have a government now. The Shah's left, and you're not conducting diplomatic relations every day. So it's things have changed, and you don't need a I think we could have done well even without an ambassador. We should have pulled the ambassador and just left the charge d'affaires there, and then pull the ambassador back when we had a recognized, government. But I'm not State Department, so I'm not a diplomat. But to answer your other question is that at the time when we went out to our other post, they had taken away our M16. There it is, the State Department, and the regional security officer, what they call the RSO. He's the go-between the Marine detachment and the State Department. We work for them administratively. We're still under admin control for the Marine Corps. They take care of our record books, they take care of our pay, et cetera, et cetera. But anything else in their operational control, we come under our U.S. State Department, and our boss is the ambassador, and that's it's like working directly for the president. He's the president there on that soil. So
But
whatever comes from Washington through the filters to him, he passes it down. And we raised hell that day. It was, I think, the 12th. It was Monday, the 12th of February, when they ordered us to bring in our M16s to the armory, the CIA armory, and trade them out for shotguns. And we raised holy hell about that. I remember going into the NCOIC, non-commissioned officer in charge of the Marine Detachment. So if I use the word MARDET, that's Marine Detachment. Gunnery Sergeant Sutton. And I told him, I said, this is a bunch of bullshit. I said, this is crazy. I said, how are we supposed to be able to defend this 27-acre compound, a wall compound, okay, with just 20 Marines? You're talking about one Marine per building in there when they still got people. Now, that's not the way it was. Table of organization went. I'm just spreading it out that it would come down to any of the buildings that we had or lives of people in those buildings. It would come down to one Marine each. I said, look, he said, Gunny, this is ridiculous. Whoever's made the decision is not looking at the tactical situation here. I said, we are this building, this whole compound is surrounded by high-rise apartment complexes. And office buildings. I said, we already know that, if there was going to be an assault on this embassy, the attack would come from snipers or from long range, shooters up there on those parapets, from those rooftops. I said, we could barely be able to shoot back with an M16, let alone a shotgun. I mean, on a good day with a shotgun and a slug, you're lucky, but a rifled slug, you could hit something at 50 yards. Okay. What they had what any of those, shall we say, for the lack of anything else, the terrorists that did attack would be at least a 30 caliber weapon. And then barring that, anything else, the information that came down is that just the opposite of what we found out is that what they call the Armish Mag, it's a contingent of the United States Army training with the Iranian Shah's army. They had a very large compound just a few blocks away, and it had a sizable vehicles and something like a National Guard setup, and they had a large contingency there of an armory of just about anything you can imagine. And when they capitulated, that fell. Those arms went out into the street, and you're talking Belgian FN 308 round type of rifles, automatic, and it's just rock and roll right there. So he says, "Yeah, I pissed and moaned and groaned, complained about it." And I said, yeah. He said, "You can put it in writing, Sergeant." He says, "But that's just the way it is. You know who we work for. Those decisions are made in Washington, up there in across the pond." And it's ours not to question why, but to do or die. We've heard that before. So really, you can complain all you want, but even the tactical situation of it, I said, we're not going to be able to defend this place here. These shotguns are going to be next to useless. They might be workable and feasible inside the Chancery building, the main building of the embassy, because you're going office to office and you're shooting inside. But outside, it basically just crippled us.
Yeah. So on February 14th, when all of this started, so take us to that day. How did it start and what happened?
Well, we had been on a 24-hour alert. That means all of us was on, and on duty. Nobody was off. Everybody was staying their posts, and the only people that were not on duty was if you weren't actually at a post, you were still awake and ready to respond as what they call an ART or a SART, an area response team or a special response team. Kind of like a backup. But I had my position itself was at the Caravanserai restaurant, which is a restaurant in the very back corner of the embassy. And it's weird because half of it has a smaller compound that allows Foreign Service local employees, non-critically assigned or cleared people to eat at the restaurant or shop at the little shopping store that's there. But they weren't allowed to come in egress or ingress through. Only cleared people were. So it was a very viable, very important area of the compound. During the night when it's closed, you just needed to have one person there, which was myself. During the day, it's active date, so you'll have two on there, and that's where I was that night until about 8 o'clock in the morning, over Tuesday over the 13th and the Friday or Wednesday morning when it turned to the 14th, and it was bitter cold, and I got relieved by two Marines and gave them my briefing, and off I went to try to get some sleep because after nothing happened that night per se, you can't stay on 24 hours, for that long. You will eventually have to get some sleep and some chow. So come 8 o'clock in the morning, we were allowed to downtime, waiting for maybe again when it's fluid and dynamic like that for the NCOIC to call the tactics of it. The tactics were we were the night before. We waited for the assault that didn't hit. So now the new people that were there, the ART and the SART, taking all their spots, and the ones that had been on duty for 24 hours will get some rest. So that's why I went back to the Marine House after that.
So, so when the attack started, what happened? What did you do?
I actually, when I had got off a post, I went in and I got some breakfast in the restaurant, and talked to my waiter friend Minachi, and then after that, I went back to the Marine House, and I guess about 10 o'clock, maybe about 2 hours later. I'm just getting ready to take my gear off and my shotgun, my radio, and everything, and get in my rack and get some sleep. I'd been exhausted, and then all of a sudden I heard small arms fire, and we haven't had anybody shooting around the embassy for the last 24 hours. And I found something that I realized. I said, there's something strange here this morning. Is that normally there's a lot more foot traffic, and during the middle of the week and by 8 o'clock in the morning, and there wasn't. Also, that the normal Farsi guards, formal formal police, that they're armed and they're uniformed. They will stand outside the embassy gates, probably between the wall, which is basically anything on this side of on our side of the wall is supposedly American sovereign property. Everything on the other side, as from the sidewalk onto the street or whatever, is a host country, of course, and they most of the time use Farsi police. We do the same thing, and it's almost the same similar operations in almost every country in the world. And then, of course, if they have military or something, they would actually control the streets or any other part of the country. And I noticed that it was very quiet, and I didn't see any of the Farsi guards, police, and it didn't just strike me hard because I thought maybe, well, what the hell? It's a holiday or something, different world. Uh, it was really, really cold. Maybe they, haven't gotten to their post yet. It didn't matter to me. But anyway, I was back in the Marine House, and I remember trying to get just taking off my flak jacket, my helmet, and getting ready to go to sleep. And then all of a sudden, I heard small arms fire. And I said, "That's strange because last night we didn't have any at all." And I said, "Now who the heck is shooting at us?" And if you've ever been at a rifle range, you'll know the difference between a crack of a rifle and the sound of the report of a handgun. Totally different. And then and then all of a sudden the radio cracked. They're coming over the wall. They're coming over the wall. I said, "What?" And I heard them said that was Corporal Downey. He was at the main gate. And then from the sound of handguns came the sound of rifles. And there were snipers that were up there on the rooftop, just like we expected. And they were trying to keep our heads down while the people they were with, the terrorists, came over the walls. So as they come over the walls and a few got in, they started to spray the compound left and right and just up and down with automatic weapons fire. So we went from handguns to rifle fire to sustained automatic weapon fire. I mean, they were just emptying magazines like there was no tomorrow. And so I said, who the hell's got automatic weapons? We don't. We had turned ours in. So when we heard they're coming over the wall, requesting permission to fire, I'm taking rounds. I said, holy shit, this is a gunfight. We're being attacked. So I grabbed my stuff and I put my grabbed everything I just had, my radio and everything. I said, oh shit, here we go. My first protocol to response was to get to the Chancery building, lock it down, and see where we have set positions there, and according to my rank and position where it was, take hold of the American lives that are there. We look for the secret squirrels that are in and around there. The, of course, Ambassador and Charlotte Affair. We had to go and look for them. The trouble is that when I entered out of the Marine house onto the compound, I could see that everybody was running around crazy, and nobody knew where to go because you got all four sides of the building, and we're taking sniper fire from different directions, plus people that are already on the ground, and they're trying to keep our heads down, fire and maneuver. It would have been trying to run through an open area to get to the chancery, looking like probably about 100 yards or a soccer field or two, and I could see that there was branches getting sniped off the trees from the bullets, and the cars that were in the motor pool, they were rocking from getting hit in the windshield and whatnot, and I could not get across that field. I mean, there's the sheer suicide. So basically, the second our plan B is to go back to the. If you can't get to your main post, is go back to the post they just came from, which for me would be the Caravanserai restaurant where the other two Marines were.
Yeah. When you
You
and
said, yeah, you said that there was a lot of activity in your book. There was like Molotov cocktails. There was people that's randomly firing into the embassy, and stuff like that. That normally happened. Of course, on that day, you in your book you describe that it was eerily quiet. It was eerily quiet. Those Molotov cocktails, those people firing and drive-by shootings and all that stuff that normally would happen. Is that just harassment by Iranian by people, I guess loyal to the Ayatollah, saying, "Hey, we don't like America, so we're going to throw a Molotov cocktail in here," or were they not even doing that stuff at the embassy?
No, normally there was a lot of harassment. It was by people that they were just some were just thugs that they had a weapon and a couple magazines of ammo. Drive by, hey, let's go by and shoot up. They shot up the British embassy. They shot up a couple of the Western embassies, but we took the brunt of the hit most of the time. They
Just
drive by, pick up trucks and shoot. They throw the Molotov cocktails over. Sometimes they didn't even light them, and they just throw them over, expecting them to burst into flames. We had to go out there and pick them up in the morning. Remember, this is 1979, so the IEDs weren't really, for the most part, a part of the terrorist plan for what they used, later on in Iraq and against us. So, answer your question, Vin. Yeah, you never really got I'm not trying to be impertinent, but they don't have name tags and they don't have flags or anybody. It's just one gang about and then another gang of some type. But you can almost usually tell what they were because some of them actually had some military gear on them, like a bandolier or a helmet or a equipment belt or something like that. Whether they had killed a Shah's troop to take that, a soldier and taken it, or whether a lot of the Shah's people just when they found out Shah left, they just capitulated and they left their arms, just took them off, the helmet, everything. We saw it and put it down on the ground, just walked away. They didn't want no part of it. They were just tired of killing. Very similar to what's going on in Iran today, right now as we speak. 8 hours from now, it's daylight over there, and that IRG group, the Hezbollah for the most part is running the game, and when they just want to go, when they want to shoot you, they just shoot you. There's nothing there. There's nobody to stop you. And so that day out there wasn't any. There wasn't any police. There was nothing. So pick what you want, who you want, and put them all together as gangs. And they decide, hey, we need a target or we need something. And there's always going to be a leader. There's going to be a troublemaker that says, hey, I got an idea, or they're being paid, or somebody's got a plan. I mean, let's hit the embassy. And so we really didn't know at times who the protesters were. The huge soccer stadium, I bet you could hold 50,000. Wasn't too far, about a mile or so down the main road right there in front of the embassy. And a lot of times when they were protesting, they'd get that place filled, and people would be screaming and chanting, and you could almost hear it like thunder. And there was that many people down there. Then they pour into the streets, and they go to their appointed spots where they decided that they wanted to hit that day. And up until like Monday, I think it was the 12th. Uh, when they'd come by, for the most part, is sometimes it was violent, other times it was just burn American flag or something like that. Throw
So
trash
just
over
harassment. So
throw
just
trash
harassment.
over the wall. Yeah, but other times when later on at times at night, because there were so many people out there, they couldn't do a lot of drive-bys. Drive-bys came usually after the sun was down, and they didn't want to be seen. And the cameras that were out there, they destroyed the outside cameras. But so we just any vehicle that came right by would drive by slow, or any vehicle that went by at excessive speed. You expect a drive-by, and you call it out on the radio and just wait for see what would happen. But it was weird because, like you said, and I put in my book, it was quiet over Monday and Tuesday. And normally, when they said, "Well, again," I thought, their civilization, their culture, is it a holiday, or what's the middle of the week here? Maybe it's too cold. February, it was cold; it was below zero, so I mean that could have had a factor play into it. But the up until that morning, and we heard him come over the wall. Yeah, it was kind of eerie quiet, and without the people showing up at the embassy, as if they knew or something was in the wind, and the Farsi police. Nice of them to tell us that they're not coming to work today.
Yeah. So so let's jump to head where that. How did you? So you had 22 people that you had hunkered down in a cooler, and how did you get the jump on the main guy who was in the commissary there where you had them hunkered down to get these 22 people out? How did you save their life?
Well, when I got back to the post, I got back to talk with Sergeant Hinojos and Henry Lochek, Corporal Lochek, and I gave a situation report. I said, "What do we got?" And he says, "We don't know. It's chaos. We heard Farsi on the radio. Our radio's been compromised." I said, "Well, there's two spots here." I said, "One, we can't leave this place abandoned." I said, "So the little store that was in there, it had foreign service local employees, Pakistanis, Filipinos, Iranians that worked there, coming and go. That was already in there, shopping and whatnot." I said, "Well, there's no sense. It was all glass front anyway." So I said, "There's no sense trying to take, trying to make a stand there." I said, go over there, get everybody out, give me a head count. We'll get them in here to the Caravanserai restaurant. We'll board this up until this chaos is gone." And that's what we did. So we took a head count, and there was there was 22. I say 22 Americans. I refer that in my book, but they weren't all Americans. They were a mixture. Probably about a dozen Americans that were there at the time, either shopping or having had just coming over for breakfast. So we barricaded the caravanserai up, and very shortly, I mean, as soon as we basically got it boarded up, we tried to contact the post one and give our situation report over the landline, the hard line. It had been cut or is out of circulation. So well, we were basically incommunicado. We were just the three of us and the 22 other civilians, call them non-combatants. So we took the best situation that we could, and we said, "Okay, look, nobody knows we're here." I said, "We don't know how long this assault's going to happen," and I said, "We can't communicate with anybody." So I said, "We're basically in an Alamo mode." I said, "We're going to hunker down here and stay." And just about that time, you could still hear all the firing going on all over the embassy. We couldn't see what was going on. We were on the outside wall of it. So with that, we just decided, said, with ricochet rounds coming through and hitting certain areas of where we were, I just figured it was best that we put the non-combatants in the back near the freezer, because it's best, probably the safest ballistic place of all, to keep everybody. And so that was the best way we could do it. I mean, there's no manning the walls or anything like that. This is a restaurant. It's not a fire base. Anyway, so uh, it was just shortly after we got that set up, is that a vehicle, a semi half armored vehicle, one that came from the Amish Mag, it come crashing through the gate, and behind it was about 50 different type of terrorists. Call them what you want, but I mean, they were all armed. Most of them had rifles, and some had military gear on. But in pictures in the book, you'll be able to take a better description of what they were. And they came through and just filled up the whole area there. Went right into the store and started, looting it, taking everything that they could find. And I said, "Oh, that's just great." I said, "But sooner or later," I said, "they're going to come over here to this restaurant." And sure enough, they as soon as they were done taking care of the PX there, that little store, they come over and they tried getting into the doors of the Caravanserai restaurant. Now, Sergeant Hinojos, aka Jack, and Henry, Corporal Lochek, the two of them were saying, "What's the next step?" I said, "We have no orders to surrender. We can't give up this post because we could control the access and egress with our fire or with our observation where we were." And I said, "But it's just a matter of time before they figure out we're in here." And I said, "By the way, take a close look at this building that we're in. It's solid wood." And I said, "If they decide to torch this place, they're going to cook us inside." So that's a real, nasty, uneasy feeling, knowing that eventually, if push comes to shove, they light that place on fire, you're going to stay inside and smoke, or you're going to come running out, and that's the way it's going to be. We'll call them the insurgents for the most part. Tried to get in and they found out that the doors were locked. They either heard or knew we were inside, and so what they did is they were banging on the door and speaking in Farsi. So I didn't understand Farsi that much, and so I got hold of Manachi, my waiter friend, and I asked him. I said, "Hey, who are these people and what do they want?" And he did some communication back and forth through the door, and they ordered him to open the door. And he said that he couldn't do it, that the tables and chairs were in the way, whatever. He gave a bullshit story. But so while they were talking to Farsi, he found out who they were, and they were the Fedayin Kalk. And what that kind of group was, for the most part, is they're a bunch of thugs that work for whoever pays them to do whatever they want. I mean, criminals, Bloods, Crips, pick who you want. Now that's their version of it. But these guys here tend to side with communists, and so how do you take Shiite religion that's supposed to be a Muslim origin and mix it with the communists? I don't know. I guess money makes good friends at times. But he had described to me. He said these are very bad people, and he says you can't reason with them. They're fanatics. And he said if they find out that you're in here as a Marine and you have weapons, they will kill you. And he said then they'll slaughter everybody else that's in there and have their way with the women and everything else. So I said, "Oh man," I said, "this just keeps getting better by the minute." So the other two Marines, we had heard that, and unfortunately, a couple of the Americans that were non-combatants that were standing nearby heard it also, and then now our guys all know it, and you can see the look on their faces that they're very upset, and they were wondering what we're going to do. And just about that time, they started. Our adversaries on the outside started shooting through the locks of the doors. I guess they got impatient and started shooting through the locks and the doors. And I can see the locks of the doors, giving way, and eventually they popped through. Now the lock is gone, but yet we have everything that's boarded up and barricaded up, but they still can get through. So when they try to put their hands through and push that stuff out of the way, that's when we open fire on them. And that's what started the melee right there. And the poor guy put his hand, the first one to put his hand through, he pulled back a bloody nub, and then it was on. And at least 20 or 30 of them out there just turned their rifles on automatic and just started spraying the whole building. We took cover and hid down, and I don't know for how long, but it was 5 to 8 minutes, I think, of just nothing but sheer hell. Hellfire came upon us, and the place was just riddled with bullets. All the glass was being busted, and it was so loud you couldn't even hear yourself think. And in between that, when they would go to reload, then we'd fire back at them, and back and forth, about, oh shit, 3 or 4 times, that would happen. And there was a lot of them out there that just without any kind of cover or concealment, and we dropped about 8 or 10 of them. And so I said, And I said, I said, if there was any chance of surrendering, it ain't going to happen now.
Yeah.
So, that's what started the firefight between the us and the insurgents. Um,
Yeah. Point of no return.
yeah, it really was at that point, Vinny.
Yeah.
So we knew that after saying we've been at it now about an hour and a half back and forth, and they're trying to fire maneuver and move up. They try to push a big dumpster, big iron dumpster, that way, and the I guess we got lucky because the first time that they opened fire on us and they were standing out there getting ready to reload, we returned fire the first time, like I said in my book, and it dropped a number of them that I was surprised they weren't hiding or looking for cover or concealment. So I
Right.
said the first few that got dropped are probably the ones that had the biggest set of balls or the most amount of training. And the ones left behind are, I wouldn't call them cowards, but nobody was standing up to take the leadership position. The ones that were dropped in the on the ground.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So the first round took out the leadership, and then the rest of
yeah,
them
it
were
took
just
out the
kind of
brave
flying
ones.
blind. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, absolutely. So we still didn't have no communication with anyone, and it was the place was all shot to shit. And the situation for us, I said, we had an ammo count, and we looked at it, and we said, we took the ammo count, separated all or divided it all in between the three of us, and said, we're not going to survive another go at this. When they hit us again, I said we'll be down to small arms and then hand to hand, cold steel. And I had a fighting knife. Jack had a fighting knife, and the funny thing in my book where I talk about Henry did not have one, but he went to the kitchen, got a butcher knife. I said, "Yeah, that'll do. That'll work."
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's a very daunting feeling to knowing that you're going to have to stab another human being to death, and they're going to be doing the same thing to you, very
Yeah.
shortly. So it's quite unnerving.
Yeah. I
So
bet.
yeah, you're saying, and just the looks on the Americans' faces, the other people's faces, they're saying, they're not saying anything, but you can read their minds, like what's going to happen to us, who's going to save us when you guys are dead, and there is no answer there. I mean, the answer is it's rhetoric, it's self-explanatory. We're dead and gone, and you're next. So
Yep.
Right.
I said, I told him, I said, if there's any pots, pans, dishes, anything you arm yourself with, I said, it's going to be your choice because we're going to be dead and gone, and it's going to be up to you. If you want to surrender, you surrender. I don't think they're going to have mercy on you. I said, you want to fight it out, and it's going to be a personal choice, and that's the way it is right there.
Yeah.
But anyway, one of the guys that looked like he was in some type of leadership role or had assumed it uh, was poking around, had gotten up on the roof and climbed over the barbed wire and the barricades that were on the roof across a big steam pipe, and had gotten around behind us and over to a blind side of us, and we noticed that. And when he was coming around, shaking the doors on the inside now of the embassy, a wall right there. Now there's nothing between him climbing that wall to get into the embassy because the gate's locked. I said so, but he wasn't in shape. He's a little too fat. He wasn't going to get over that wall. Um, he edged himself around, checking the doors and windows to see if there's another way to get in there. But we could not at that point. We could see him, but we couldn't really get a good beat of fire on him. But now that separated us, now we had to leave one of our positions open. But it's just so happened to get lucky, Lynn. He
Yes.
came around and he didn't know that I was standing right there against the podium and a wall there, and he couldn't see me. And when he walks around the corner, I put my shotgun out the door or out the window actually, and it was on like 5 feet from his head, and I got him to freeze, and he couldn't even move. It was 5 feet away, and I know he spoke fairly good English. I did not speak much Farsi at all, and it come to the point where we had said, "I don't know who you are, what you guys want, or or anything." But I said, "You can see by me and Marines that are in here." I said, "We're not going to surrender." I said, "There's non-combatants in here." I said, "Pakistanis, Filipinos. I mean, some of your people, some of my people." I said, "They're non-combatants. There's women in here." And I said, "We need to." I said, "You need to let them go." And I said, And he just was looking at me, and I said, "This is the way it's going to be, bud." I said, "Either you're going to negotiate, and we're going to let these people go." I said, "They go out the back gate there with the same gate that they basically blew open with the vehicle." And I said, "You pat them down." I said, "They can leave." I said, "No funny business. You don't molest the women." I said, "They go free." And I said, in the interim, I said, the Marines and I will surrender ourselves, our equipment, everything that you want. You have the building. You get what you want. No more your people die. No more my people die. And I said, that's just the best way that anything could go with this. And I remember looking in his face, and he's saying, "And what if I don't?" I said, "I'm going to blow your fucking head off." That's that simple. I said, "I will decorate that wall behind you with your brains. Do you understand that?" And I meant it. And I said, "You better hurry up make a decision because this shotgun's getting mighty heavy."
This episode is brought to you by Simple Funding LLC. For all of your pre-settlement funding needs, contact Simple Funding LLC to receive your money promptly. They're a customer-centric legal funding company that provides exceptional funding solutions at affordable rates. Simple Funding covers a diverse range of cases, including car accidents, slip and falls, worker compensation, medical malpractice, wrongful death, and more. They recognize that life goes on and you need to access your funds immediately, which is why they offer clients a swift and efficient process with minimal documentation requirements. For more information, visit simplefundingllc.com or contact them directly at 678-855-6232.
The whole time they're praying, the whole time I was a quiet little prayer inside, hoping to God, say, "Dear God, let him take the deal. Let him take the deal." Because if he didn't, I was going to have to shoot him. And then, of course,
Yep.
you know what happened after that. We'd have been slaughtered. So he decided to take the deal, and I said, I called Henry over, and I said, "Hey, Henry," I said, "Look, here's what's going to happen. Get the people ready. Here's the deal." I said, Jack, you get above the transom up there, the window above the back door." I said, "One by one, get everybody out of here." I said, "They're allowed to pat them down." I said, "They can get them out the back gate, and they can be gone." I said, "Then we're going to surrender ourselves up." I said, "No sense, fighting it out, shooting it out." I said, we're not going to make it." And he said, I said, "I wouldn't want them going back on the deal and then them chasing them down with vehicles or anything." I said, that'd be bad. So basically, that's just the way it happened. Is that you got the jump on the guy, and he didn't have much on. And man, I made him an offer he couldn't refuse. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well.
Famous last words.
Yeah. So once the 22 hostages got out, one question before that, when the 20, you said there were about 12 Americans there. Was any of the American hostages important people like Secret Service or people that couldn't be known that would have been really tortured to get information out of if they would have been
To answer your question, yes, there are intelligence agents works at embassies. Is all I can say. Anybody that doesn't acknowledge that is a fool. Okay, just a fool. I can't say what agencies, who they are, but yes, there's law enforcement agents that FBI, DEA, things like that. It depends on what country that you're in. They're obvious because they carry weapons and they have credentials. But when you talk about intelligence operatives, yeah, there's dozens of them from all different types of agencies, and a lot of them have 2 or 3 different types of identification that they had to work through. And that being said, once that if they were to be captured or held hostage, and if that information was to get out, then it'd be easy, because if you were to hold them hostage, it's a matter of time before you look in the embassy and find out, since you take control of the Chancery building, you're going to have all the information that they didn't burn or get rid of.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely critical that we didn't let them fall in the hand. We nickname them secret squirrels. That way we cover the generic of what they are, but we don't know if they're CIA, DIA, NRO, NSA. I mean, there's so many alphabet agencies in there, it's not funny.
Yeah.
So, yes, there was, to answer your question, there was in that genre of folks in there that morning. And that was just another, I talk about it in my book, but I can't go into detail at the time. and I'm sure that they've probably passed away by now because I was in my 20s. That was back in the 47 years ago, and they were in their 30s. So it's we're bound by secretive laws and contracts, and we take oaths of office, and for security clearances, we cannot confirm and we cannot deny, and that's just the way it goes.
For everybody listening, you have to read Ken's book. It's called A Marine Goes Through Hell, Endures Hell. A Marine endures hell. It's a story that he is retelling right now. It's unbelievable what he went through, and if you got a weak stomach, you might want to you just be ready, because he goes into some graphic detail about the stuff that he endured, what he saw, and what he went through. I'm gonna put a link to get his book in the description right there. So if you're intrigued by the story, which I was from the very first time I heard it, you really gotta get his book.
And if you want a signed copy of that book, just email us, and Ken will see that you get a signed copy of that book.
Absolutely.
So, Ken, my next question is take us to the part to where after the 22 hostages got out, and then the part where you got shot.
Okay, so this guy, we'll just call him number one. He's the leader, okay? Basically, I said that when it got down to the last person that was there, Henry Corporal Lochek, he says, okay, they're all out. And I said, okay, good. I said, okay. In the meantime, I had beat on this guy's head. And I told him, I said, okay, well, fine. I mean, I took like forever holding a shotgun on him. And I said, okay, give us a minute. And I said, we'll take our weapons and we'll get them ready for you. He didn't have any idea what I had in mind. Anyway, so we, according to surrender type protocol, if you're in that situation, you deny the enemy any kind of use of your equipment or anything that can, bolster them, and help them out. We basically beat our shotguns if you take a look at shotguns, you look where the barrel is, and we would bend them and bang them down to where they basically are useless. Bend the slide on them, anything we could do would break the butts off of them, and get rid of the ammo, hide the ammo that they can. And shotgun's not a whole lot of good without the ammo. Break the radios up, tear off the antennas, and just any equipment we had, and we piled it up in the middle of the caravanserai restaurant there on the floor. And I told the guy outside, I said, okay, we're taking the barricades down. And as we start the barricades, the tables, the chairs, and everything we could find, ice machine we pushed over there. We moved out of the way of the door, and as we backed up, I said, okay, come on in. And they burst through the door. And just as we stood there with our hands over our heads, and I knew enough Farsi to say, we surrender, taslim koni. And he said, don't shoot, we surrender, and we give up. And out of the corner of my eye, I seen this flash, I seen this movement. I looked over, and it was Minachi. And he had been hiding in the little linen closet where he kept the linen for all the tables. And it all happened simultaneously. As they kicked that door, it must have startled him or something, because he ran right in front of me, and that guy that kicked that door saw me, and he opened up with a burst from his subgun. It would look like either an Uzi or an Ingram Mac 10, but it was a 9mm, and it hit Minachi right in the chest. Between him and me, Minachi went right in front of me, and the freak position at the timing would be the only place on earth that man could have been to get hit. And when I saw him, he fell, and I went, oh my God, Minachi, no. And he fell down. He fell right almost in my arms. I went down on my knees, and I grabbed hold of him, and the rest of the entourage came running through the door. They grabbed hold of Jack, and they grabbed hold of Henry, and they started beating on them. And the rest of them ran around and ran through the building looking for things or looking for other people. I don't know. But I just lay there. Minachi guys, his body, you could look at his eyes and just see him glass over. They didn't close; they kind of just got glassy, and he stopped breathing, and his chest was all red, full of blood. And I'm holding him, and I'm not crying. I was in shock. My mind would not let me realize and process what just happened. This is not real. If there was anything back then known as artificial intelligence, that's what AI. That's what I would have thought it would have been. And it was horrifying, and everything seemed to like slow down all at once. The reality come and set in. It just took a few seconds as they filled up the whole restaurant. And he was actually dead. So they grabbed Jack and Henry and took them outside. It was freezing ass cold, and now we're just down to our basic BDUs, battle dress uniforms. And so while I was sitting there holding Minachi, I don't know. I got kicked in the face in a boot, and it opened up my eye, and it rolled me back away from, separated me from Minachi. And he said something in Farsi, and in stepped that guy at number one that I had been talking to, and he looked at me, and he looked at the equipment that was on the floor, on the ground, all our helmet, our jackets, and everything. And he looked at him. He tried to pick up a few pieces of it and looked at everything. He said he could see that it was just stolen. I mean, stolen. It was destroyed. It was useless. And his people that was with him, was watching and looking, and they're just kind of shaking their heads and disgusted that this is the kind of deal you make. And he went off on me. He's screaming and yelling at me that I didn't keep our part of the bargain up, and this is why people don't like Americans. They always cheat you out of everything. And I told him, I said, look, hey, I told you could have me and my Marines. I said, and all of our equipment. I didn't say what kind of condition it'd be in. And I
Whoops.
guess I was being a bit of a smart ass. And so he ordered me to. He said something in Farsi, which ended translated into orders to kick his ass.
You couldn't
And
resist. You couldn't resist, could you?
no, I couldn't. No, I'm not from New Jersey. I mean, what am I gonna tell you? He was just furious with me at that point. I made him look like a smacked monkey's ass because I said, here you get here you got what you wanted to. Anyway, so he gave the orders to start to put the boots to me, and I had stood up and I was looking at him, and he gave the order or whatever it was, and then I got hit in the ribs with an AK-47, and it cracked my ribs. It cracked my right side of my ribs, and that put me down on the ground. Then they put the boots to me and just started kicking and harding. The Man, it was a mess. I never thought it was going to be over. You crawl up in a little ball, to protect your vitals. And somebody had gotten a boot in, a steel-toed boot, I think, and just hit me right on my sacrum coccyx bone and cracked that. And that's when, I could feel my legs go numb, and I just thought, no, I'm losing it. I can't fight back, and I passed out. Um, I don't know how long I was out, a few minutes or so, and then I come back. The overwhelming shock and the pain, it just overwhelms you. There's nothing you can do about it whatsoever. It's non-voluntary, the muscle reaction. Anyway, with that, the yeah, I woke up and I was all wet. I just remember like in my book, I said, I'm wet. I said, what the hell? It's freezing cold. Well, I guess when I'd been passed out, they urinated all over me. I was passed out. So when I came to, you could smell it. You go, man, shit! I I stink like cat urine. It's terrible. Anyway, so he has. In the meantime, I guess he had picked up one of the shotguns, and he was fumbling with it, and he was looking at it, and it's a Remington 870P shotgun, which is P is for police, and it's got a pistol grip on it, but it also has a folding stock. So when the stock is extended, it looks like a regular shotgun. But when the stock is folded down and you got just a pistol grip, it's if you don't know weapons, it's a little intimidating at the time. And so he was fumbling with that. He got the stock out anyway. So you know, I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me, and I'm bleeding in the face from the kicks and whatever. Henry and Jack are outside. They're beating them up and pummeling them. And so he looks at the shotgun, and he's trying to open it. And I said, well, to myself, I said, good luck with that. And just about that time, he gets the slide open, and he had a slug, or a slug. He had a shotgun shell. And I said, now where the hell did he get that? I don't know. Maybe he was on the floor somewhere. But anyway, and he rolls it into the shotgun, and he racks it home. And I mean, I know that I hate to use Hollywood, but you know how in Hollywood they always use that that action and that sound of the shotgun. And I said it's okay. People recognize it when you're watching a movie or TV, but when it's done right in front of you, it's a little unnerving. Let me tell you, buddy. It's a lot of it's a different sound, and so and he gets that home, and I said, oh shit. And I seen his finger go towards the trigger, and then he turned it towards me. And I looked at it, and I went, holy shit, that's my shotgun. I could tell because when I had beat my shotgun down, at the very end of it, it had a little nib. It had a little white nib that, you use for pointing and aiming. And mine was bent right at that spot. And I said, damn, that's my own shotgun. And I didn't think he was going to shoot me with it. I mean, I really didn't. But inside, I really had this fear that, just boom! Gun went off. I just happened to see his finger going towards the trigger, and boom. I don't know what I felt that day, gentlemen. And I've said this 100 times in every podcast or any time I've ever told this story. I sensed it was coming. There was no way to block it whatsoever. I thought he was just going to intimidate me. But when he pulled that trigger, I don't know if it was on purpose or not. But we were lucky that, I've gone over this several times, we were lucky that he was holding it. He did not have it in his shoulder. So as soon as it went off, he's holding it just by the pistol grip, it kicked up. And whatever number shot was in there hit and spread almost immediately as soon as it hit the end of that barrel. And, it disconfigured it right there. But again, I don't remember getting hit or the pain. I remember what I recall today, 47 years, a wave of pressure. Like when you open the door and of the oven or something like that, you get that heat. That's what I thought I felt. Now, if you're still standing there a second after you get that wave, it's going to be hot and you're going to step back. Same thing. I put my hands up to my face and I pulled them down and there was blood all over my hands, but I didn't know if it had hit my face or if that was Menache's blood from where I was holding him. And I just rolled over and I passed out. And I remember somebody carrying me, and there was blood in my face, and I went out. I was being carried outside. Everybody had an arm and a leg, and as I was out there, I was looking over, and I could see. I looked up, and the American flag was not flying. The flagpole that's right there at the Chancery Building, we could see that you can see that anywhere on the post. It wasn't flying, and I looked up, and there was Henry and Jack, and they were standing with their hands behind their head up against a brick wall. And they looked like they'd been beaten up a little bit. And I looked at them and I just said another little prayer. And I said, oh, no, God, please don't let them get shot. Don't let them execute them like that right there. And I passed out. I had no idea how I got off that compound. And, fast forward to I passed out. When you pass out, you wake up. You don't know how long you're out.
Where did they shoot you at? Where did the bullet catch you at? On your body?
I got blasted above the eyes, in the neck, forearm, but the main blast hit me right in my chest and my stomach.
Yeah. So. See, I remember from your book that you were so tired after you had breakfast in the restaurant that you went into your barracks and you were so tired, you started to take off your vest and you just were too tired. So you just laid back. That saved your life, that decision, being lazy in that instance.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Too lazy to take your vest off. You're like, I'm just too tired.
I never thought about it that way. You're right. It's
because
that's one of the miracles, Ken.
It's one of the miracles. Absolutely. In your book, you started to take off your vest and you were too tired, so you just laid back in bed. And then the next thing you know, the embassy is getting attacked, and you're in action. And you get shot. That vest saved your life.
So they're carrying you out, and you pass out, and you wake up in a makeshift hospital.
Correct. And I wake up, and from what I'm trying to not just talk about the book and the things that I've said before. I'm trying to still go back, especially recently now with what's going on in Iran. People asking me things, and I'm trying to go back 47 years and think and feel what I felt. And I can't feel that. I can remember feeling some of the pain, the thing that's coming upon me, but actually what I thought and felt, it's been too long, gentlemen. I mean, you can't be accurate about it, you know. But I just remember trying to sit up in my bed, and I felt, I said, where the hell am I? And it's a makeshift hospital. You can tell because it doesn't have the normal tubes and things in the walls, and you know, like a hospital, but it's set up with everything a la carte in my room, and I'm by myself. In a bed. I have intravenous in both arms, and I go to sit up, and I looked at, and I felt it. Oh, this agonizing pain. I pull the covers back. I look down. I have just a t-shirt on, a clean t-shirt, wasn't mine. I got bandage on my stomach, and I'm got my skivvy drawers on, and everything else is gone. I said, "Where's my boots, my ID, my wallet, my BDU, battle dress uniform, camis, basically?" I said, "Where's all my shit? I mean, you know, where am I?" And I heard people mumbling around out in the hallway, and just at that time, a nurse had come by, or somebody in scrubs, you know, female, and I tried to get her attention, and she poked her head back in, and she said, "Shush, shush, you be quiet, no talk, no talk." I said, "All right, damn, why, whatever." And you know, I said, "Well, at least they speak a little bit of English here." And she popped her head back in a few minutes later, while I was trying to peel back the dressing and see, you know, where I got hit and everything else. I had little bandages over wherever they seemed to have seen blood or whatever. And she came back in, and I remember trying to read her name because it's written in Farsi, but it's also written in English, and her name was Souza. So I pronounced her name, and she said, "Shh, shh, you know talk, you know talk." I said, "Where am I?" And she wouldn't tell me, and couldn't or did she wouldn't tell me, and she goes, "You know talk." I said, "They come for you later." I said, "Who's they? Where am I?" And she had said, "I come back for you." She left, and I'm looking at my bandage, and she told me, you know, don't bother your bandages. And they had done a really crappy job. It looked like they had just taken duct tape and put it across the wound. I couldn't see the wound, and they just wrapped the heck out of it. And you know, I couldn't sit up straight. And every time you try to move any muscle, the pain that was I had gotten from the beatings, especially with the one with the sacrum coccyx bone, you're just agonizing. You can't move, but yet as you lay there, it throbs so desperate, it just makes you crazy. You just want to, with pain. It's just you can't. And they weren't giving you anything for pain. I said none whatsoever. So Sousa came back, and she had basically said, I asked her where all my equipment was, where my stuff is, where am I, and she had said, "You know, talk." I said, "They think you're CIA." I said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, who's they?" And she couldn't tell me, or she didn't tell me. And while she was talking to me, these two goons come in, looking very much like the guys that were dressed and armed at the embassy. They come in and had a little talk with her in Farsi. And next thing you know, they're yanking the intravenous out of my arms. I got blood squirting this way and that way. And she pushes them out of the way and takes the needle out, you know, and closes it up with a little bit of cotton and a little bit of gauze or something and some tape. And you know, they they yanked me up, and I can't even get out of bed. I'm so weak and tired. Remember now, I hadn't I hadn't been in sleep for 30 hours prior to this. Then the adrenaline dump, up and down, you know, during a gunfight. I mean, I'm just totally exhausted, and I don't have a watch or anything. Sorry, and this room has no windows, so I have no idea if it's morning, noon, or night, how long I've been in here or out. And there's no Americans that are looking in here. Everybody's, you know, Iranians, you can tell by looking at them. But these guys, they come over and I told them, like, you know, he could get out of the bed. I can't get out of the bed. So they lift me up and give me, put handcuffs on me. They cuffed my, said they can't get my ribs have been broken on the right side. So as I told them, I screamed and yelled, and I told Sousa in English they had broken my ribs, and they're all bruised and purple. And so they handcuffed me up front. The hands were up front, and then there was more Farsi being talked about. And next thing I know is here goes a blindfold. So I go, okay, right, you know. Now they teach you survival, escape, you know, resist and evade, and in embassy school, you know, if you're going to be taken hostage, I said, well, what to expect. So the blindfold really didn't bother me. Usually they'll put a blindfold on because they don't want you to see where you're going. They don't want to see where you're at, or they don't want you to see anybody that you'd be talking to. No, so they're shutting you down, and it's a way of controlling you mentally and physically. Okay,
Yeah,
but
but one thing before they come in and handcuffed you, a gentleman come by and took a picture of you.
yes,
This
yeah.
picture is what actually saved your
I
life.
often, I don't often leave that out, but in this right here, yes. Laying in that bed while waiting for Sousa to come back. I believe he was an AP reporter, photojournalist, um, and he speaks perfect English. Popped his head in and asked me. He said, he asked me, who I was, and I wasn't going to answer him, but he could say, "You from the embassy? You a Marine?" I guess he could tell by the haircut or whatever. So him not being part of that group that's in there and speaking English, asking a decent question, I gave him the answer. I said, "Yeah, I'm a Marine Guard from the embassy." And he said, "It's been overrun." I said, "What do you think I'm doing here? I was in the middle of that damn dog fight over there." He goes, "You were at the embassy?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "What happened?" And I just told him, I said, "They come over the wall and we engaged them." He said, "We can't get anything from the embassy." He said that nobody's answering the calls over there. He says there's smoke coming out of the Chancery building. The flag is down. He says, and we don't see any Americans. It's just a bunch of Iranians running around. He says it's been overrun, and we don't know if everybody's dead or not. And that kind of shy. The first time I ever thought about the embassy, I was thinking about myself and putting this situation together. And the pain that I was in, it was overwhelming. So he said, "Do you mind if I take a picture?" I said, "What am I going to say? No." So he took a couple of shots of me laying there in the bed, and that's a very iconic picture that went out all over the world, and I never knew it. So when we get into later on in the story, that was probably the most important picture of me ever in my life, my entire life.
Yeah,
So
that
we're
that,
sitting back
that
on the bed. We're sitting back in the bed, and now besides the she's the blindfold that's on. Now comes a hood. Now, I didn't know that they were going to kidnap me or what I was going to do, but as soon as that hood goes on, you realize, I said, "Oh, you're being kidnapped." Because when they put a hood on you, they're just, it's not just more control, but it's so that people where they take you don't see who you are. You're already blindfolded. You're not going to be able to see what you're doing or where you're going. But the hood also it muffles the sounds of things. It obstructs what you're going to be doing, your breathing and everything. Plus, it intimidates the hell out of you, humiliates you, and you hear people talking about it. But it's a danger zone because now they can walk you out, which they did, and where they take you. And if they ask anybody that they saw you, they go, "No, I never saw him." Of course, they didn't see me. They see a hooded person. They never get to see Sergeant Ken Kraus being taken anywhere. And so I have a hospital gown on and just my ass hanging out the back, and it's freezing cold there in February in the Elsenburg Mountains, and off I go. I said they took me in a vehicle and drove me. We drove for about 20 minutes or less. It wasn't long. Again today I'm estimating what it was. Back then I didn't even think about it, but I was off to a place called Avin Prison and never even knew it. I was kidnapped out, and um, away I went to Avon Prison, and the story continues from there.
yeah,
Yeah.
one of the most evil prisons in the world.
Yeah.
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 So your time at Avon, you were there for 8 days, Ken.
Yeah. Should we make the announcement now or wait?
Wednesday to Wednesday, yeah, right.
Yeah.
So how was your 8 day vacation at the Holiday Event Prison, Ken?
Well, it would take me more time than you guys got to even try to get through that a whole week that was there. You've
Buy the
really, I
book.
mean, you got to
Get
you
the
got to
book.
get the book.
Yeah.
It's a Savak prison that was I think, a leftover from a dungeon in the Crusades or something back when, because it built up on a hill, but most of the dungeon and everything is down below ground, and it's just a new building that newer building that they put in the last few years, and it was all I can tell you was a torture chamber from living hell. I
Yeah.
said
This is the part of the book. And I read the book. I read the book a few times. This is the part of the book that gets really graphic. There was parts where I just had to put it down. I had to walk away from it, Ken, because the things that they did in there and your descriptions of those things were pretty intense. So once again, for those of you listening, if you have a weak constitution, buckle up, but do get the book. It's pretty intense. It's a good.
There's a lot of torture, a lot of,
and it's told from. I'm sorry, Lynn. And it's told from Ken's. I mean, Ken. You can hear Ken talking. His northeastern attitude comes out. It's an easy read. It's a good read, and it's intense. Yeah. I'll put a link in the description. Yeah.
After watching, initially they didn't know who I was. Okay, I was like a hot potato. Whoever the Fedayeen Calc that we had the firefight with, the gun battle, they turned me over to the hospital. Okay, they didn't want nothing to do with me. They didn't want to be caught. This is supposition here, or speculation on my part, and so they turned me over to keep me from dying. Okay, I'm shot. I know, and they said nobody wants to be there. I said that's weird because an hour ago or less, they're blowing the damn place up with every round that they had, so they didn't care at that time, But now that it was over and there's witnesses out there everywhere, I don't know. I mean, we can sit here and speculate this all you want, But and trust me, 47 years, and my liver will tell you with all the drinks that I've had and what it takes to. But why did they do this? Why did they do that? I don't know what was in their head, why they did it, or why they even try to save me. I mean, they could have just left me laying there on the restaurant floor, bleed out, and I would have, without a doubt. Okay,
Yeah.
So they get me somewhere. Somebody makes a decision that no, take him here or get him some medical attention, whatever. And while I'm in the hospital, they clean me up, for enough to keep me from bleeding out. I mean, they didn't really do a good job, but just enough emergency life saving and medical attention. And then when you get into AVIN, so you're handing me around like a flaming turd that nobody wants to get caught with when the music goes off, and so when I asked him, I said basically your first round of interrogations we go through, you're going to get name, rank, and unit number, and that's all there's going to be. But see, there's no ID. There's nobody that is in the AVIN prison that knows who the people were that took me out of and kidnapped me out of the hospital. And those guys didn't know who it was that, attacked us to begin with. So you're getting, handed over. And in the middle of all this chaos, there's nobody that is in control and command. I mean, nothing. They're playing this all by ear, which is really spooky because as soon as they realize that, they don't have control of the situation, nobody's going to be held liable. They just off your ass, and that was it. Put a bullet in his head and leave him in the street. Everybody else is getting shot and killed, and this other American, and who's going to give a shit? And so that the first round of to try to establish who I was, and I guess they just didn't believe me. But over the next few days, when I was going to put down that nasty stench, horrible. You remember in the book where I talk about just the smell every day, is that because you're down under the ground, you never get to see light. There's except for the little light bulb that's in your cell. There's no windows. You don't get 3 meals a day. You just get a bucket of rice and a pitcher of water, and you share it with your cellmates. So really, when you pass out and go to sleep, you really don't know how long you've been out. And realizing that I'm the only American in there. This AVIN prison that was built by the Savak for the most part, keep the Shah's enemies, political prisoners, whatever, crazies, wackos, the worst of the worst in the world. It's like their version of Alcatraz, okay? And the people that were there, they emptied it out when Khomeini came, and he got rid of everybody that was on his side, or the criminals or whatever. And if you were really known to be a vicious person that they couldn't like or trust, a pedophile of some type, they just took you to the roof and shot you. Plain and simple, just blow your brains out right there, threw you over the off the wall. And there was bodies everywhere out there. There's pictures of them that we got.
Yeah.
And so if they didn't want to put you back into society, in Iranian society, they just whack your ass. But for the most part, so they would let all those out, and then Khomeini would put his enemies back in there. anybody that was a doctor, a lawyer, anybody in a major military situation or of any type of important military rank, would be put in there. And doctors, lawyers, you name it, teachers, mayors, anybody that had control with civilians that could rile them up, they were put in there. Pilots, everything, and they were all Iranians, and I was the only American that was there, and I could see my wounds were getting worse by the days, getting infected, and I was getting weak and not getting enough to eat. So I said, it's just a matter of time. I said, before I become, septic and you're going to die. So the
Did you endure any torture? Did they torture you?
well, like Vinny says, you want to read that book.
Yeah.
Not a
No, I
fun,
know.
not a,
Just hit the highlights.
Highlights.
right.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
I know.
you're looking at
I've
first
read
they
the book.
started.
I've read the book.
At first they started with there's no torture involved with me whatsoever, but because they didn't know who I was, all right, they wanted to find out exactly, and I couldn't verify, who I was. I had no identification whatsoever. Anyway, so uh, they would bring me into this torture chamber that they had, and it was a gruesome damn thing. I mean, they had this chair that was bolted to the floor above a grate or above a drain, and I got to sit there and I had to endure watching other people get their teeth pulled out and snapped off at the gum line. I had to see. I had to watch them getting beat and broken. Their toes broken off. Their fingers broken off. I said mock executions where they stick the gun in your mouth, and pull the trigger. It would be on an empty barrel, and you didn't know. You expected, your brains would go flying out the back of your head. I said beating, torturing. They would. On one guy that I talk about, they beat his feet so bad they beat it bloody, almost like it looked like raw hamburger. And then they hooked him up to a steam pipe and put his feet up against a hot steam pipe, and you could hear the flesh sizzle and the smell just putrefy you. I said, you get to watch all this. And I said, Jesus, man. I said, the one with the rope, when you read about what they do with that guy with the rope, I mean, that just, and
Yeah.
in between then you go in and out and they keep asking you questions and forcing you to say, at any one time, we could do this and worse to you. I said, they really couldn't provoke me too much or push it too far. I was just in such a medical mess that until they got what they wanted out of me, I mean, if they pushed me too far, I just dropped dead down. I dropped dead on them. They can see the ribs, and they broke my one big toe. It goes on and smash the teeth when they you know, but it's for the most part, it's I guess it when it's used for terror and it's used for intimidation, and trust me, folks, it works. Um, you get so broke down, you get so desperate, you just say, okay, what is it that you want? What is it that I can give you to make this stop? Because it's just a matter of time before my body can't take anymore. And this they had interrogated me with the PLO had come in there and asked about things that were he was going to stop all this pain and torture if I could you know hand over information about the embassies and Marine training and MSGs, Marine security guards, how we work, how we train, and protocols of bodyguarding ambassadors. Just basically classified information about how we do our jobs. And so I turned him away like I did in a book. We had Russians come in there, and they didn't know who I was. I mean, the Fedayeen worked for the Russians, and when they found out that hey, there's an American over from the embassy wounded over, they took him over to the Avon prison. They want to know who I was. Was I CIA? Was I the ambassador? Was I a crypto intelligence officer? They had no idea. Was I the janitor? They didn't know. So, you had several different times where they come in to interrogate you for different reasons. And I guess
Yeah.
after about 5 or 6 days, that torture and not eating enough and trying to keep yourself from being sexually assaulted and trying to fight people off, because when you pass out, you wake up, you don't know how long you've been out, a day, a week, a month. You have
Yeah.
total time deprivation, and you never see the light of day, and you don't get 3 meals a day where you can count it. Nobody knew how long they'd been in there. They'd come and get people, and then they never returned. I was the only one, and then that ever was taken out and in, out and in, back and forth. And when they just finally got tired, I guess that I wasn't gonna. I either wasn't as a high asset intelligence, person that they could use. Um, they said, what are we going to do with them?" I said, "This is speculation on my part behind closed doors." So they decided to put me on trial for murder. I said they're going to get their meat out of me some way or the other. And basically, what they can do is the mullahs, the religious mullahs, had a like a 30-minute murder trial per se, and half of that was even interpretation back and forth between English and Farsi. But supposedly they found me guilty of shooting and killing Iranians in the assault, and I said, well, hey, it's a fair fight. It's combat, They shoot at us, we shoot at them. They suck at combat. That's our job. That's what we do for a living. That's our forte. So fuck you, But that doesn't go over too good with these people, and at that point, you don't care.
Did you say that to them in the trial?
I believe I did. I don't remember, saying much, but I was talking to an interpreter, and the interpreter had to talk to the mullahs because they didn't speak English, or
Yeah.
there was no English. It
Yeah.
was back and forth.
Yeah.
So basically, they found me guilty, and they had decided to condemn me to death. And I said, "Okay, what's that mean? I'm already, half-assed dead here." He goes, "It means you will be shot
So
probably
what?
tomorrow."
Oh, so they found you guilty and said you'd be shot tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, he said you've been found guilty and you've been sentenced to death. I said, over there's 100 different ways to die. I was just watching, watching a week full of it,
Yeah.
And I said, they hang you, they gut you, I said, no, I said, you'll be shot. I mean, just plain and simple. You'll be executed tomorrow. I said, tomorrow? I said, what? And, you say, damn, just like that. They did no qualms about it. I mean, look at how hideously they're treating their own people. Okay,
Yep.
for whatever reason, whether they were interrogating these people because they maybe posted some type of information that needed, okay, or they were of some viable threat, or maybe it was just a vindictive, barbaric revenge. I don't know, but
Yeah.
any of that plays. It doesn't matter when you're getting your skin bodies burnt and tortured and ripped apart. What difference does it make? What reason it's for? I mean, you're never going to be whole again. You're going to have a heart attack with the amount of stress and pain that you're going to go, and the shot that you're going to go through.
This episode is brought to you by the Accident Attorneys of Monge and Associates, voted the best law firm by the American Institute of Trial Lawyers. When life hits you hard with a serious injury, don't let insurance companies hit you harder with lowball offers and endless runaround. You deserve justice. You deserve compensation. You deserve to win. The Accident Attorneys of Monge and Associates have a high-powered legal team with a nationwide reach and the highest rating on the National Attorney Rating Service. Trial Magazine calls them one of the most influential law firms in America. They win big. Big results at trial court, appeals court, the state Supreme Court, and are recognized as award-winning litigators of the year. The Accident Attorneys of Monge and Associates handle everything so you can heal. Don't face this battle alone. The aftermath of an accident is traumatic enough. Medical bills pile up, pain overwhelms, emotions run high, and that's where they step in to shoulder the legal fight while you focus on what truly matters, your recovery. They are the first law firm to offer a bigger settlement guarantee. If they can't beat the amount of your current settlement with a bigger settlement offer, your legal fees are free. Ready to win your case? Find out in one phone call if you have a case and how much your case is really worth. Call the Accident Attorneys of Monge and Associates today at 1-888-477-0597 or visit them online at becauseyouwanttowin.com.
Take us to when they come and got you from your cell and marched you to the rooftop. Take us to that day.
Well, they sent me back to the cell again, my cell number 5, and the friend that I had made there, he was a pilot. He spoke real good English, Abdal. We have some interesting conversations in the book, and he had said, well, he said, well, how did it go? And I said, well, I've been told that I've been found guilty and that I'll be executed. And he explained it to the rest of the people that were there in Farsi, and they were really kind of sad about it. And I said, well, I said, thank you very much. But I mean, nobody's more sad than me. And that's where I had to sit there and, make the peace with with the Lord and saying, hey, this is going to be real. I'm going to get shot tomorrow. Shot again. I've been shot once already. Now I'm going to get shot. And this one's going to be permanent. I'm not going to survive this one.
Yeah.
And, so just curled up in a ball in the cell and on my little piece of rug in the corner, and just make a deal. And I just said, look, when I'm praying, I said it's the weirdest thing, guys, because at that point you're so desperate, you're so depressed, you're in so much pain, you have just about completely given up. But even giving up doesn't mean that you're not going to give in. You're giving up that there's going to be any hope. Okay, nobody knows we're here. Well, I've been told the embassy's overrun. Nobody knows I'm here. I couldn't even find this place, Avin prison, And I said, they're killing these people left, right, up, and down, and their own people. There's no reason for me not to understand and believe that they're going to come through on their threat tomorrow, or whenever they do it. Tomorrow could be in the next 10 minutes. I mean, you don't get to look out windows when you don't have any. So really, you're making your peace with the Lord, and you say, you know what, deep down inside, I've told you guys this before, is that the thing I was most worried about, believe it or not, is that not even if they were going to shoot, and the pain that was going to be. I'm sure it was going to be with rifles, and they're going to, if they were half-assed the shot that they were at the embassy, they're going to make a mess of it. I'm probably going to feel 3 or 4 of the bullets going through, and these guys couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Yeah. So, but the thing that bothered me the most was that once I'm dead and gone, I didn't want them to say horrible things about me.
Lies.
Accuse me of, vicious crimes. He raped babies, or, all kinds of things like that. Because, I couldn't defend myself. I'd be gone.
Yeah.
And if they were, I'm going on the assumption, but I'm thinking that, eventually now they're going to take me and, take my body. Well, that's a funny thing, Ken. Where were they going to take you? Because if the embassy's gone, who's going to be looking at you? They're just going to throw me out, in the weeds, or let the kites and the jackals and the coyotes eat me.
Yeah.
And I said, I just don't know. But I'm sure that because now they're using this as a wedge in the news that's going on, that the mullahs and the people that are trying to get the government to establish to work for Khomeini and overthrow those little tribes we were talking about earlier. He says it's going to look great for these guys. Is that they got one of the Marine commandos from the embassy that shot and killed our brothers. He's been found guilty, and this is one of the first people that they're going to put out there. And I'm going to be it. It would help solidify their position and their authority, and make them look good in front of the radicals that they are. So I said, that's the best they're going to get out of it. I don't care if they drag me through the streets. I said, but just don't let them lie about me. I mean, it's my family's going to have to put up with never seeing me again and seeing whatever they do to me, mutilate me in the street. I said, the Marine Corps is going to have to, come up with something to defend the traditions of, he died. They could have said I died whimpering and crying like a little pussy or something like that. That would, the Marine Corps have to, deal with this. And then, of course, whatever thing political-wise is going to fall out for the USA in general. So it was, the deal with God. I said, look, man, just make it happen fast, and whatever they do with my body, just don't let them, lie and bullshit people. I said, I'm an American. I'm a Marine, a combat Marine right now. I serve in the forces that guard our country and our way of life. I know what I was doing. I put my life on the line, and I'll do it again.
Yeah.
So I said, if this is the price we pay, we pay. 22 other Americans, or 22 other people on this planet, walked out of there alive. I don't know what happened with Jack. I don't know what with Henry. I said, probably met the same fate as I'm about to. And I was hoping that maybe it went quick for them too. These are the weird things that goes in your mind. And that's when they said, I heard my name, not my name, I heard the number, the American in cell number 5. And I never heard that before. They just come down and grab you. But this time they had a couple of goons with them, and these guys had got some of the bigger guys, and I guess they expected me to fight or something. I couldn't even stand up. They had to actually lift me up. I was so weak. And as they dragged me down the hallway to the gate that leads upstairs, they had to help me with my steps. They had, during some of that torture, they had broken my big right toe and bent it so it was pointed the opposite way. It was just flopping around, you know. I said but it didn't hurt that much. I remember because I had to walk on the side of my foot, and that with balancing your weight on a fractured sacrum and coccyx bone and your ribs every breath you take, and and the shotgun and the video. I mean, I don't know what part of my body wasn't damaged and hurt, you know. And it just wears on you to a point where you're trying to fight that pain, and after a while, your mind just snaps. You know, you're gone, and you're useless. So I just remember them because it's one of the miracles that we're talking about in that book um, where they're dragging me up these steps, and then we get down this long hallway where I never saw before, going up and down through all the interviews, torture, torture sessions. Is that we went an opposite way, and we went up this gray steel stairwell, and I remember seeing for the first time the air was a lot cleaner. It wasn't like living in that stench down below. I mean, it was blood and bones and trash and human feces and everything. It's the worst place I've ever seen. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Even since then, even inside Avon prison was a human sewer. That's the best way I can describe it. It was like hell that was not on fire. It was amazing. It was disgusting. Anyway, so that I get the steel stairwell, and they're trying to drag me up, push me, pull me, like trying to get old fat grandma's ass up over a wall or something like that. It was crazy, and in a way, it was a mixed blessing because as long as it took me to try to get my leg up and step, on these steps, I could see that there was a door at the top, and the door was underneath the door. You see the crack of light, the first daylight that I could ever see, and how long I was there, I don't know you know. Um, and then you could also feel the wind and the cold air. It was still very cold, and I never really warmed up. I mean, it wasn't warm wherever we were. You're just shaking all the time. It's horrible. And I said, well, this is it. I guess I had the sensation it was a rooftop, and you could hear people talking or something up there, but there was no gunfire or anything. So I was wondering, is this a rooftop or where they taking me? I had a gut feeling that's what it was, and all of a sudden, one of the guys that was in the room where we had the courtroom, if that's what you want to call it, that was in there, come running down the hallway, and he's screaming in Farsi to these guys, and there was one of these goons on each side of me, but there was another guy standing there with some papers and scroll shit. I don't know what it was, and it was written in Farsi, and I guess my death warrant in front of. I don't know, and he's those two guys had an argument, barking back and forth, and I thought they were going to get into a pissing contest and a fight right there. So the guy running down the hallway that I'd seen in the murder trial, he won out on the argument, I guess, and they pulled me back down the steps, drug me back down that hallway, and went back up to where an administrative office was for the first time in. It was a week, but I didn't know how long it was. Is that we were actually in an area that was administrative. People walking around. They weren't guards. They were regular people that it was in office uniforms and things. And I could look out the window of when we walked by an office. I could see that it was light. My eyes hurt so bad because I'd been in this dark dungeon for I don't know how long, and then the light actually hurt my eyes, and they sat me in this office, and it was a regular office. There's a coffee mug there. There's a telephone. There's stuff that looked like people worked there. And I said, what is this? They sat me in the chair because I couldn't. I couldn't stand, and I just collapsed on myself. And so a few minutes later, these two guys in uniform, I mean in suits, brown and a blue suit, came in. And when you read the book, I had talked to guys in suits earlier that were KGB or GRU, one of the two, and they were interrogating me for what they could do to help me if I could give them some information on the embassies and what I actually did. And I had to convince them that I wasn't an intel operator. I was nothing that a Russian at the time needed. Remember now, this was 1979. Okay, no internet, nothing like that, and we are still in NATO versus Warsaw Pact. This was not your friendly Russians that you have today. We don't
Yeah.
call them Russians. This was the Soviet Union. Okay, the USSR. You still had the Iron Curtain going on at the European in Europe. Okay, Europe was divided. Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and all that, Romania, Bulgaria, they were all behind the Iron Curtain. They were Soviet satellite countries. Okay, Germany was East and West Germany. Okay,
Yeah.
Berlin was still, checkpoint Charlie. So that was it was only 4 years after Vietnam fell. Saigon fell, I think, in April of '75. We're not in April of '79 yet. See, so this is to put it in perspective back in the time frames here. So when you're looking at this here, these guys came in. One had a French accent, one had I think a German accent, and they introduced themselves. I said I thought this was again. I go, oh Jesus, you're so broken down, guys. Is that they're going to take you up to the rooftop and let you get just so close, and then bring you back down, and now they're going to do another interviews, more interrogations. But I said if that's the case, then well, what am I doing in this office here? Well, why don't you just interrogate? You could have just took me into the old torture chamber there. And he said, no, no, no. We are from the International Red Cross. I said we are here to help you. And I said, yeah, but no. They showed me documents. They showed me some kind of credentials. And not that I could really tell the difference back then, but you looked at them and said, this roost. If this is going to be a roost, these guys wouldn't have put documents together. They just said they wouldn't introduce themselves. And they talked with a couple of the Farsi people that were there, and had a little powwow just outside the door where I could hear the voices. And then he comes in and he said, "You have been turned over to us in the International Red Cross." And he says, "We're going to make sure you get back to the embassy." I said, "The embassy?" I said, "The embassy's not there. The embassy's been overrun." I said, "I've been told it was overrun. Everybody was dead. I was the last of them." And they looked at each other like, where'd you get that story from? And they didn't correct me, and they didn't tell me I was full of shit, and they did tell me I had it right. But the look on face told me something that I just said didn't jive with what they were thinking. And they beckoned a guy that was just out of the sight around the corner, and he come walking over, and he was wearing I described him really well with a London fog, a tan London fog long coat, and he looked familiar. I said, I know that face. I know that walk. As he started getting closer, he got almost up to the door, and I recognized him. It was Jack Schellenberger. He was a political officer, junior diplomat at the embassy. Now I'm thinking I'm hallucinating, or they already took me upstairs and shot me, and I'm dead. And now this is the life afterward. Is hell's going to torch you, that you think you're going to go free. And he was one of the last diplomats that I've ever seen at the embassy. So why wouldn't he be the one, in my dreams? And these are the weird things that go through your head. And you're looking at him, and he says, "You're alive." I said, "You're alive." And he said, "I thought everybody was dead." And I said, "Oh my God, Jack Schellenberger." And he said, "Oh my God, Ken, we've been looking for you." And when he called my name, I could hear his voice. And it was like an outside voice that was inside me. And I said, "Yes, that's the voice I know. I recognize that voice." And I went to try to stand up, and I couldn't hold myself up. My toe and my stomach couldn't, my sacrum and coccyx bone couldn't hold me. And I collapsed, and he catches me, and the other guys help me out. And I remember saying, "Hey, can I smell you? Let me smell you," when I'm holding him, and he's holding me, and I'm crying, and he's crying, and I smell his cologne. And it's weird because now that's the only thing that gave me reality check and know that this is real. I said, my guy says, we're here to take you home, Ken, all the way home. I said, "Oh my God, I can't believe this. This is they were just going to shoot me." I said, "Yeah. And the reality of it is that they had some clothes. They started changing me out right there, and Everybody had to help me get my pants on. I had to go get a different pair of shoes because my toe wouldn't fit because it was so broken. Anyway, they got me all fixed up, and I'm thinking the whole time, if these guys had been a little bit later, or if they had been a little slower, a little later, tied up with paperwork or whatever, they would not have been able to save me. I'd have been executed on the
Right.
roof.
Yeah.
If I wasn't in such bad shape and not able to climb the stairs to get up there to that roof, I said I'd have been up there, and the triggers would have been pulled on me.
Yeah.
And so they hobbled me out to a car that's waiting, and off we go. And I look back into and they say into the sunset. I don't remember. I'd like to say it was sunset. It's been 47 years. It feels like it was so bright because I wasn't near any light for so long. I had to shield my eyes the whole time when I talked to someone. We got in the car. We had a driver. We had to look like, I thought, a bodyguard, and another guy on the other side of me from the embassy. I didn't know his name, but I've seen him before. And there was Jack. And we drove back to the embassy and back to. I remember looking over my shoulder, and I squinted as best I could, and I said, I looked at it and I said, Avin prison. Nobody on earth will ever believe what I went through or what goes on in that place. Holy mother of God, this is insanity. But then comes the internet, and now you can see things instantaneously all the time. And since then, the history of Avin and the photographs get out, justify exactly and validate exactly what I'm saying. Ask any Iranian that was over there has ever been in Avin prison or Quasar prison. Just almost as bad, but Avin was the torture chambers.
So,
And
so Ken, they put a death warrant out on you after you was escaped death. They put a death warrant out on you, and I know that in this past week that the one who signed your death warrant,
oh yeah,
his
oh yeah, baby,
his
it's called a fatwa.
yeah,
And I was told there's a famous picture of me in the book, and it's got a picture of me being escorted out of the country, deported. They said, "Oh, he was being evacuated out." Bullshit. You take a look at the goons that are on either side of me, holding me, and they're armed, and they're taking me from the embassy in civilian clothes, and you can see the picture of me going to Mehrabad Airport, and I got stopped there, and the mullah that was there was reading something in Farsi to me and saying that I had been found guilty in all these crimes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and that I had been found guilty under a fatwa. And it's one of their religious orders that said I'd been sentenced to death. And if I ever come back to Iran, he says, I don't have to go through trial or nothing. I'll just be executed on sight. I told him, I said, motherfucker, if I ever come back to this shithole again, it's going to be in a B-52. I don't know if he understood what I was saying, but I just had to get that out of there. And they put me aboard the plane, and I left the country. They were deported, and haven't been back. But the guy the guy's name is the Imam Ayatollah. Ayatollahs are like bishops, okay? If you can put it in a church, Christian church type of rank and file. And then the mullahs are just below those. Okay, so you have ayatollahs, and then imams endeavor to be an ayatollah, but then you have an imam ayatollah. That means the ultimate. He's like the pope. Okay, and I'm not comparing them. I'm just telling you that's the rank that they're in.
Yeah.
So that was the Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini that had been at it with the Shah. And when the Shah left, Khomeini came in, but he was old back then. I mean, he was almost dying as much as the Shah. We traded one old goat for another one, but he came in. He was just a titular head for the most part. The second one that you guys now know is a very similar name. His name's he's not an Imam Ayatollah. He's just he became leader. He became leader at that time, to tell you the truth, but he was a lesser known younger guy at the time working as a henchman and a number two guy under the Imam Ayatollah. And his name is, he's gone now, thank God. He was Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, not Khomeini. So they're very similar, but he was the one actually pulling the strings, and whenever things needed to be, got done, he was the go-to guy. And eventually when the Imam Ayatollah Ruhollah died, this guy took over a few years later, and we've been dealing with his bullshit, for 40-something years. So he's the one that signs the death warrants and makes sure they're active, and that he's the only one that can pardon anybody, in a situation like that. So when I first saw his name years ago, I remember saying, "Yeah," I said, "It's you and me, motherfucker." I said, "I just didn't know what to say." Is that whenever I heard his name or seen him on television, I mean, it was like post-traumatic stress flashback. I mean, it's just it was disgusting, and it's just full of hate. It fires you up again. You almost want to throw your beer bottle right through the friggin' television
So,
when you see him.
so when
But
needless to say, you feel a little bit vindicated.
vindicated when I found out that on our first strike that President Donald J. Trump had just said his name and put his face out there, that he had been eradicated from the planet. I got drunk over the weekend. I get crazy. I had my phone blew up. I had Henry Lochek call me, the only other guy at the embassy, because I think Jack has passed away. And I said, other people that know the story and know me, family and friends, my phone has not been quiet since then.
Yeah.
And I put it out on the internet and my Facebook. I said, I outlived you, motherfucker. That's all that matters. I said, if I die tomorrow, I die a happy Marine.
You win. Yeah.
I win. And not only that, but they said they found out, well, under the rubble, is that somehow intelligence-wise, they had been stalking this guy, tracking this guy, knew him everywhere he moved. When he took a crap, they knew where it was.
Yep.
And for the most part, they were the United States have been and Israel has been bombing around the clock, but not so much during the day. They've been hitting them at night, and the first couple of assaults came at night. So when this guy evidently said, "Well, we'll have a meeting during the daytime because they don't bomb during the daytime," they was just waiting for him, and they salivated when they found out daytime. They tracked him to his building, right, his command structure. In a compound for whatever, and he had something like 40 of his henchmen, top of the line people with him. So not only did we get a high asset, card played and got whacked, but 40 of his guys went with him. How lucky, how bingo, when you want to talk about, hitting the lottery for killing terrorists all at once. When I heard that, I just said, man, I got to have a party. So a couple of friends and come on over. And I said, yeah. And they all brought some, bourbon. I said, we're going to have a goddamn good time. And I celebrated that human's death, and he's an animal. And what he's done is not just to me and the thousands of people back then, but the tens of thousands of people over the last 47 years.
Yep.
And 99% of them are probably his own people. Not to mention that he'd give the blessings to Hezbollah that would turn around and use the proxy of Hamas to attack Israel. So you cut the head off the snake, you get rid of these bastards, you take the money and the funding away and the power away from Hezbollah. Okay, Hezbollah now can't help Hamas coming from from Gaza and coming in from maybe Beirut in the north. They can't. You cut them out. No more Hezbollah. Hamas is going to fold. You now put new people in there that are reasonable. Okay, that can stop the bullshit going on with Israel. You quit bombing Israel and you quit goddamn attacking them like they did in October of 2023. That was hideous. 2,000 people kidnapped, raped, and murdered for nothing. For what? To prove a point?
Yeah.
You get rid of the troublemakers. You're going to have a lot less trouble.
Yep.
And you're looking at it now. You're seeing now the Iranian Navy is at the bottom of the ocean everywhere. They have no planes left. They're left. Most of their missiles and launchers are been taken out. Almost every leader that pops his head off, we cut the head off of him. So who wants to be the next leader? Then they're running out of people over there.
Yeah.
To make decisions. Their command and control. Their economy is in shambles, and you have thousands of people in every city that are racing up against this theocracy, and they just want their country back.
Yeah.
I have Iranian friends over here that that are so pro-American, and it's sad because politically they're more, how should I say, pro-American and pro constitutional on monarchy is what they're looking for, and they want to vote. They want a free vote so they can go back to the way they live and be free in a modern society. And they are more pro-American than some of the damn people we have in Congress right now. It's
Yeah.
disgusting. It breaks my damn heart.
Well,
It's because of them sons of bitches and that I'm talking about, I refer to in Congress. They need to take their happy asses over there to Iran and see what these people are going through.
yeah.
I said they literally over 47 years, the torture, the pain, the agonizing, barbaric ways that they torture their own people just so that they can stay in power. I mean, I've never seen anything like it in my life. So those people need a break, and they are at the edge of right where it needs to be happening. But I have to tell you, you're gonna have to kill the ones that are in charge right now. You can't just let them walk away and capitulate. You have to get them off the planet. Murder them, kill them, eliminate them. Use the word you want. But as long as they're alive, they are a disease. One of the worst diseases ever known to man. They should never be allowed to take another breath after tomorrow. You get rid of them, and you have open up type elections in Iran. You let those people decide who they want. You want to bring back the Shah's son, Reza? Bring him back in as a titular head and say, okay, let him get things together and make your decision. As if you want to make him a king, so be it. But it's going to be your decision. You want him to be something like I would say head of a parliament or something, but yet have a constitution. It's going to be up to you people, but it's going to be your country again. It's not going to be at the point of a gun of 2% of the ones that get their answers and their guidance from their version of how they, in my opinion, hijacked a good, decent religion of Islam and put a really bad name on it for the last 47 years. And that's my take right there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Unbelievable. Well, so happy that he's gone.
Yeah. Well,
happy.
Well, Ken, your opinion counts because you were there, you lived it, you've seen how he treated people, and even in your book, you have pictures of bodies piled up 4 or 5 feet high, and 20 feet long. So of people that they killed, their people, not outsiders, but they killed their own people because they didn't agree with them.
You've seen the pictures of the generals that worked under the Shah and how they took them out and beat them and tortured them, and then riddled them with bullets and put their pictures in the newspapers.
Yeah.
Okay, murdered these people, and then they're like the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the Pentagon.
Yeah.
All top generals and aides to the Shah.
Yep.
Murdered them, then put them back out there, gruesome, and they're horrible pictures.
Yeah.
And that's for you. That's your dad. That's your brother. That's your husband. That's your friend. Somebody you know. And that's what they do. That's the fear and the terror. Literally, the terror in the mind that they want you to feel, and they get off on it. I really do. I think they get off on it in a way that we can't imagine in their sick world, and that's why they have to keep that. And they're willing to die for it. I mean, I said that's fine. Challenge accepted. Challenge accepted, motherfuckers. We'll come for you.
Yeah.
And President Trump and Israel, they're doing it. Because if these crazy bastards, these maniacal motherfuckers, ever get nuclear material, they don't even need a nuclear weapon. They don't even just a configured weapon, a dirty bomb. Okay, you can make about a 5 kiloton bomb with some dirty uranium, dirty plutonium, and stick it, and it'll fit in the back of a UPS truck.
Yep.
And now, where can you park a UPS truck?
Oh.
How about Wall Street? Right in front of Wall Street.
Yeah.
How about right in front of the White House? In front of the Capitol building?
Right in front of the CDC.
It does not have to be a configured weapon in the sense where it's high tech, which it has to be launched anywhere. You know?
Yeah.
Oh no, we got plans inside. We can find that anywhere. That's fucking bullshit. I tell people, yes, we do have some types of security around some of the major ports, and they do radiological checks on some of them, but you're talking about hundreds and thousands of containers that come in on ships all the time in 40-something major ports in the United States. You don't think you can hide a nuke in one of those?
Yeah,
they're crazy.
Yeah.
And here's a question for you. You think about this: with all the time and money that they make with all their oil, okay, they need nuclear material like I need a second asshole. I mean, that's the best way to put it. Now, that being said, they get their hands on nuclear material, a dirty bomb. Who's going to be the first target they're going to hit?
Oh, Israel and America.
Israel, very good.
Yeah.
I mean, Israel's only got like 3 or 4 cities. You hit Tel Aviv, or boom, they're gone. Their economy's gone. That country implodes.
Yep.
They probably wouldn't hit Jerusalem. I don't know. I'm not going to bet on that, but I'd probably not, because I think it's a holy place for Muslims and Jews and Christians and a lot of other religions, and it's not an economic center per se. But I mean, yeah, Israel would definitely be, or the threat thereof, and just keep the war going on and on and on.
Yep.
Now, here's the question: who's going to be number two?
Oh, America.
You bet your ass.
Yep.
The United States, if they could get it here or somewhere, one of our major assets, a strategic base or something, or one of our great allies,
Yep.
to turn against us, go into the Saudi family, and say, okay, we're gonna nuke about 8 of your damn oil fields, and see, and nobody can. You set off a nuclear bomb, take a look at Hiroshima. It's gonna be a while before you can use that area again.
Yep.
So when it comes to these people, they have spent so much of their oil money on nothing but rockets and terror and military equipment that their people are still. What's the real? That's their dollar, right? What's it, 1.5 million right now for $1? You
Yep.
need a wheelbarrow full to get a loaf of bread. It's
Yep.
insanity, and
Yep.
they don't care.
Nope.
They'll put their people through it.
Nope.
And when you're dealing with a mentality like this, okay, and that with they're not afraid of death per se. They'll be martyrs and suicide. In a heartbeat. What are you going to do? You have to stop them now.
Yep.
If you don't, you will be fighting them. And I told you that in 1979 when I came back. Stop these motherfuckers now, because if you don't, you will be stopping. You will be fighting them. Your sons and daughters will be fighting them, and you have been for the last 47 years. Here's
Yep.
the best shot we got at cutting the head off the snake, getting rid of every one of these guys, okay? Getting rid of it so that they never come back. Don't even let the history write them. They were never here, okay?
Yeah, well, I have to say, Ken, that there's a lot more in your book than we talked about here. A lot more. There's the plane ride home,
Oh, yeah.
and I also hear that there's a screenplay written on your time, and from February 14th until you made it home, until you hugged your mother on the tarmac in Pittsburgh when you got home, or in Philly when you got home.
That's true. I've been very lucky and blessed to have a really good writer, and he helped me put together a story that was come out in a script where I hope very shortly a nice hungry producer takes a look at it, or some investors say this would make a great movie, because people that have read the book
It would
said
make a
this could be
great
a movie.
It,
Yeah, they said this, especially at this timing that we just finished it probably in January, right before the start of this the confrontation over there with Iran,
right before it started. Yeah.
right before it started. So the time. So people are very interested, and it's a copyrighted script, and it's out. It's going to be available for purview to any, like I said, any hungry producer or investors that want to take a look at this and say it's not only a good movie, but it could be a great TV series. 7, 8 seasons or whatever it's going to be. Because you're right, Lynn. There's so much that had gone on that mirrors today what's happening over there. That people around the world are seeing it because of the advent of not AI, but at least with the media that's out there and the availability of cell phone cameras, and the internet. It happened the same way and on a very similar scale back in 1978, 79. But you guys just couldn't see it, like I said, when we first began, because we didn't have the technology back then. Now
Yeah.
you can see it live as it happens.
Yeah, well, the February 14th of 1979 was the start of the Iran hostage crisis.
True.
This was what started it. Ken Kraus and the two Marines that were with him was the start of the hostage crisis that was that where they took the hostages in November and held them for 441 days, I think it was.
444.
444 days. And this was the beginning, and this is a story that should be told. I've had the privilege of reading the screenplay, and it is a awesome screenplay. It hits all of your emotions, and it does have a lot of the torture scenes in it. It does have. I mean, it's the part that I like most about it is it hits Ken's attitude. It hits that it
What
does
attitude?
that Ken Kraus attitude. It does.
You talking to me?
You're talking
You
to
talking
me.
to me?
Exactly, that one. That right there. So
Good
So
luck on finding somebody that's going to have that attitude and that's going to be able to put up with the scenes with the torture.
Yeah.
You got to pay him extra for that one.
Yeah. So, hey, anybody out there who has the means to fund a movie or knows someone has a contact Ken Kraus. I'm going to put his contact information in the description. Also, you need to read his book. For those of you out there interested in making a movie, read his book, contact Ken. You can check out the treatment, check out the pitch deck, check out the screenplay, whatever you need. But Ken's right now, he's looking for producers, directors, and we're looking for a cast and all that stuff. So it's in the works. So pretty soon you're going to see the Ken Kraus story up on the screen.
or you can send us an email to us here at the podcast, and we will get it to Ken, because Vinnie and I both, we're close to Ken, and we stay in touch with Ken. And
RealPrivateEyeStories at gmail.com. That's how you contact Lynn and I. I'm going to put Ken's contact email plus a link to his book. Ken, I can't hear this story enough.
You've got to read his book, because we ended the story before we ended it when Ken left Eva in prison. And there's a little bit
more. Left Tehran. He hasn't even got on the plane yet.
Yeah,
he just told the guy, I'm coming back. It'll be in a B-52 bomber. There's more stuff that happens, and it's pretty crazy. Check out his book. And
after the years of in the last 47 years, things have become declassified. People have passed away. Things have become open and known, and that I couldn't use before. So then, especially in the special edition, if you want to splurge for that one, you'll see maps, and you'll see pictures, photographs never seen before, and you'll get this inside story of the political version that year, and how what happened there actually probably was the political suicide for Jimmy Carter.
And you'll
definitely get the special edition.
And you'll get to see the things that Ken snuck out of Iran when he left, that he was not allowed to take with him, that he actually snuck out. And you will get to see the things that Ken has spent a lot of time and money to get declassified, that he has put in the special edition book, that he spent his time and efforts to get declassified. So it's a really good book. So a lot of things that we just don't have time to talk about here, and a lot of things that we just can't explain to you on a podcast, that you got to get the book to visually see. So, I just want to ask you one last thing, Ken, before we cut you loose. 47 years after, how many people have contacted you, or how many kids or grandkids have contacted you of those 22 people that you saved their life? How many of them have contacted you?
That's a good question, Lynn. I had referenced that when we've talked together, and that's probably one of the best takeaways of anything that I could ever say. When people ask me what I remember most about it, what's the most positive thing of everything that I went through, was it worth it? I said, yeah, because there's 22 people that now walk the face of the earth at that time over a decision myself and my Marines had made, and stood up for it. And we're never going to see half of them again. We're never going to be able to see some of the secret squirrels that were there. You can never tell who they were. You can never identify them. You can't even admit that they were there. So the few Americans that were there when they came back to the United States, it seemed like they just took their time and their effort to contact me. And it was strange, because they would just write Christmas cards, or my birthday when they knew about it. It would just be Ken Kraus, Lansdale, Pennsylvania, where I was living at the time, stationed at the Naval Air Station, Willow Grove in Pennsylvania, just above Philadelphia. I was staying at my mom's house till I got out of the Marine Corps. And people wouldn't even put a house number, just put the city and my name, and they knew where to deliver that. And as it went on, and I got out of Marine Corps, and I traveled around the country, and got different jobs, and finished college and whatnot, that every once in a while a letter would catch up to me, and something like after the 444 days, and Valentine's Day comes around once a year, and I have get on a talk show radio or TV show or something like that, I'd end up getting another letter from somebody. And a couple of times this one hit me. Really, I still have that. And my mom would save these when I was while she was alive. God bless her. She would have saved these in a shoebox. And when she passed away, she goes, "Did you ever read this one?" And one of them was that said, "Dear Mr. Kraus," and then she called me Mr. Kraus, and it was great. And it says, "You don't know me, but I'm the granddaughter of so and so, and you'll never probably know how happy I am to have a life that you saved my grandmom at the embassy in Iran in 1979. And because you saved her, my mom was able to give birth to me. And now I'm getting ready to go to college and have a wonderful life. Thank you, Mr. Kraus."
Wow.
And it's
Beautiful.
things like that they just come in. You know, you get that in the mail, or you get that handed to you, or you discover that and you say, "Wow." And then they sign their name to it, and it's just like a wish, almost like a wish or a prayer, and it goes off in the wind, and eventually, and like a feather, it floats down and lands in your lap, and you look at that and it brings back the memories.
Yeah.
So for what it was worth, everything I went through, it's my life versus 22. I'll take that any day.
Yeah.
hell
Well, Ken, and not what you went through that day, but what you continue to go through, the nightmares you have, the mental suffering that you have done and still do. That one little thing is just a blessing in disguise.
I
And
can't believe it
Absolutely.
took. I can't believe it took 47 years for a screenplay to be put together for this story. This story needs to be told on the big screen. People need to hear this story. They need to see a story. It's an amazing story, and
well, not only is it an amazing story, but people need to understand why your M16s were taken and you were given a lesser weapon. People need to understand that we knew, our government knew this was coming, and they disarmed you intentionally. Um,
There's a lot of treachery and things that are secret that never come out. You don't advertise that, but
yeah,
now that's available to come out. Nobody can disavow it, and they can't tell me that I'm wrong. And
right.
if you could contact any of the other Marines that were ever there, Henry Lochek just recently had a podcast, and he can verify it. So
yeah,
Yeah,
there's no question about it whatsoever. There's none. You don't even think about it. It's
yeah,
just sometimes it could only be what's the absence of what's missing is so prevalent, and then they turn around and do the same thing in Benghazi. It's
yeah,
the same thing, and the same political party that was in town at the time, and they just let them get taken. So
yeah. Well, I would like to say if there's anyone out there that hears this that was involved, or any children of anyone that was involved, that feels that they need to reach out, please reach out to us here at the podcast, or there'll be a link to Ken. You can reach out directly to Ken, send him an email, say hello. Ken's
thank
a,
him.
Ken's a friendly guy. He'll talk to you.
Yeah,
He'll talk to you all day long.
yeah, yeah,
I
and
would love to hear from anybody that's in the family of the lineages, from anybody, even if they're the ones that went back to the Philippines or Pakistan, or I think there was one that could have been from South Africa or Australia, even when I heard the accent, but they were glad
yeah,
to get out of there. If they're still alive and they have family that or friends that were part of their entourage in growing up over the years, I would love to talk to you.
Yeah,
Be
okay,
friends on the internet.
and the picture that was taken of Ken in the makeshift hospital, that was the international press that took that picture. Someone who worked for the international press. So
yeah,
if there's anyone listening that had a family member who worked for the international press, or if the person who took that picture happens to be alive and listening, please
Oh
reach
my
it.
God.
Please reach out. I have researched that. I have tried to find that person. We cannot find who took that picture. They never put a name on who took that picture. Please, if anybody knows who took that picture, if anybody worked for the international press that is young enough to still be living and know who took that picture, please reach out to us and let us know.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you
right,
very much. I
yeah.
appreciate that.
Thank you very much. And Ken, thank you so much for doing this. We do appreciate it so much. And thank you all out there for hanging in there and listening. If check the description, links to Ken. Check out his book. If you want to contact Ken, you can also reach out to us at RealPrivateEyeStories@gmail.com. Thanks a lot for being here. We'll see you next week.